Hey, I'm Randy, and this is RPG. So I started by laying out exactly where I wanted the miter slots to be. Now I had to take into consideration a few factors. One in particular, and probably the most important, was where the screws are that hold down the top. Then it was a simple matter of drawing out some lines and then putting a straight edge up against those lines to where my 3/4 inch router bit would be able to cut that square against the blade. So I took this in a few passes, each taking off approximately a 1/16 of an inch, maybe a little less. I didn't really measure it or anything like that. I just kind of moved it and made the next cut. But so 4 or 5 passes, and I finally got to the depth that I needed. Then it was a simple matter of moving the straight edge to the next area on the opposite side of the blade and making several more passes, adjusting as I went. All in all, it took probably anywhere from, I don't know, I didn't count them, 10 to 12 passes, and each miter slot wound up being approximately, well, they wound up actually being exactly 7 inches from the blade. So from the tooth edge of the blade to each miter slot was exactly 7 inches. And this is why I need dust collection. What a mess. Well, future video looks like. And now it's on to disassembling the old table saw, which was really nothing more than a piece of plywood with a skill saw attached to the bottom. Now it took a little bit of fiddling to get that all square and workable. There was 6 screws that held the skill saw down to the plywood top. And then this bit here, this whole table assembly here, was actually something that was left by the previous owner of the house that I live in. It was his workbench that was left in the garage, and I decided that it would make a pretty decent table saw. So I cut that hole in the top of the wood there and mounted my skill saw underneath on top of a piece or underneath a piece of plywood. And then I used a cardboard box to make this little dust chute. It's all just taped on, and it went to a cardboard box that sat underneath the saw. So taking the tape off and removing the old cardboard funnel that basically shoved everything down into a cardboard box. It wasn't super effective, but it did collect most of the dust that fell out of the table saw when I was making a cut. There's still a lot of stuff that floated around in the air, and you can see some of that just falling away right there onto the floor. Okay, so no more cardboard. Let's just pull this thing apart and call it good. Okay, miter slots are cut, and now I'm not going to use them. In fact, I'm just going to raise the blade up and use the fence and start cutting some pieces for dust control. So I'm just using 1/2 inch plywood here and ripping it to width, and then I will cut it down to length, and that will form the back and bottom and sides of the dust collection area that's going to go around the saw underneath. Okay, the enclosure pieces are cut, and now I'm just laying out where I want the screws to go for when I mount it. So I'm just laying that out, and then I will take the actual dust collection port and set that up in there and figure out where I want to mount that as well. So I laid out where the dust collection port was going to go, and then I came in about 1.5 inches from that mark and laid out exactly where I'm going to make my cut. Then I'll drill some holes and use the jigsaw to cut that hole out. So I've got the area marked out where I need to drill the holes and make the cut. So I'm drilling those now, and then we'll make the cut with the jigsaw. And then my battery died on my camera. Both of them. What am I gonna do? I need a safe space. Okay, all whining aside, here's what happened. Here's the side piece. Here's the back side. That's gonna block off everything on the back side of the saw. And underneath, with the dust collection port mounted after the hole was cut. Here's a door that I cut for the side, which will allow me access to the side of the saw, which actually holds the wrenches that I'll use to change the blades. And the Death Star view of the miter slot that I cut. Well, that'll wrap up part 3 of this little series on the table saw build. Sometime in the future I'm going to be adding a router lift to the right side of the table, and at this point I do not yet know if I want to have the dust collection coming from below or from the fence. I don't know. Stay tuned to figure out what I decide. If you like this little series, give me a thumbs up and hit that like and subscribe button to see some future videos. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, please leave them below and I'll address them as soon as I can. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.